Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast. It is Thursday, March 21st, 2 days after the big lawsuit from Clemson against the ACC, an event that was characterized as shocking to some, but not to those who have been at TigerIllustrated.com. We have really been painting this picture for quite a while, I think probably since last summer. We're going to continue to do all we can to be at the forefront of this moving forward. So, to be informed about it all, TigerIllustrated.com is the place. My good friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold have been part of the podcast since the beginning, way back in August of 2018. They have an accomplished team of personal injury attorneys at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold based in Greenville. They are Clemson people, and their skillful attorneys have decades of experience in complicated litigation matters, taking a special interest in medical malpractice, nursing home abuse, and neglect, car accident cases that have left the individuals involved in serious trouble. For a free consultation at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, call 864-990-4581. Or online at parhamlaw.com. That's PARHAM law.com. When you're ready for a complete renovation in your home or business, open the door to more with Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Their local experienced team will totally transform any room space, from beautiful floor coverings to construction to finished details. Harris handles every step of your renovation process, whether it's a kitchen or living room or an industrial or educational setting, like some of the positively stunning work they've done at Clemson University. Go to discoverharris.com and experience a total renovation transformation from Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Solero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Solero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Solero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Solero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Solero at solerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. Okay, to our guest. This is the first interview I've ever done with him. Tommy West. This was awesome, as he gets into the reasons why he's retiring, and also, wow, going back memory lane. The 80s, so many cool stories, the 90s as well. This is just splendid. Enjoy. Okay, really happy to be joined by former Clemson coach Tommy West. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Well, as we were talking yesterday over the phone, your name has come up occasionally. I've been here a long time, and I was just... I don't even remember who it was. Somebody who lives in or around Camelot. Actually, my in-laws live there now. But they said, yeah, such and such lives in the house where Tommy West lived. And you were saying that was back in those days. And for those who aren't aware of the geography, Camelot's right across from Patrick Square, older subdivision. But that was where all the coaches lived, right?
Just about everybody. I mean, I moved there, and then Rick Barnes came in right after me, and Rick moved in, and God, I can't think of the baseball coach's name right now. But anyway, he lived there. Jim Davis, girls basketball coach at the time, was living there. So, we had 4 or 5 of the head coaches live there.
You talking about Leggett or Wilhelm?
Leggett.
Yeah.
Leggett, yeah.
What, first of all, I interviewed Rick Stockstill on this same podcast a couple months ago. It was I guess it was maybe less than a week or two after y'all got let go at Middle Tennessee. And in our conversation, he said that, and certainly you can relate to this, having been a head coach, the hardest part is you're trying to find jobs for all the people under you. It's that sort of ecosystem under the head coach where people are dependent on their paychecks and all that. And he's like, I'm trying to, just trying to make sure everybody's okay. So can you just update everybody on what you've been up to since then, and just maybe a window into that?
Since the Middle Tennessee deal?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I came here. It was a little bit different. Rick called me, and of course we've been friends for a long time. and wanted to know if I was interested in the defensive line job. And I said, really, Rick, I think I'm just going to get out. And then he said, no, come on. He said, you can really have a good time with this. And I said, can I do it for like a year or two and not make a long time commitment? And he said, sure. So I ended up being here 10 years. And to be honest, then I always laugh and tell people that at the end he couldn't get rid of me. But I had probably one of the best times coaching, because after 15 years of being a head coach, and you deal with so many different avenues as a head coach, you don't get to. The worst part of being a head coach is the things you love is your room and coaching your position and handling your guys, and you don't get to do that because you're managing the whole team, and you don't really build strong relationships as a head coach. You're managing a staff and a football team. But anyway, here I had a great time here, 10 years, and then now that Rick's done, then I'm going to get out of it. It's time for me. I'm 69 years old, be 70 in July, and it's time. It's really, to be honest, it's becoming more and more of a young man's game. And so I know when my time's come, boy, I had a great time. Got some great memories, and been around, worked with, coached some great people. And I'm really blessed and thankful for the opportunities that I had, but my time's come and gone.
Yeah, as you say, you're at a different stage of life, and everybody's experience is unique to that respective situation. But I'm just curious. I think one common thing has to be when you're coaching and when you're in the fire and when you're just grinding every day, just trying to get an edge in whatever area it may be. It has to be a jolt when it just then gets just shut off, such as when Stockstill gets let go. Was that, were there elements of relief to that, but still maybe kind of disorienting when you'd wake up one day and, I don't have anything to do. This is kind of cool, but kind of weird.
Yeah, when you work the hours that we work, and the thing about coaching is it's so seasonal. For 6 months out of the year, you literally work 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what people don't realize. I mean, like during the season, Sundays are probably our busiest day. We're in the office 8 o'clock Sunday morning. We leave 8, 9 o'clock Sunday night. And then all of a sudden when it ends, it's funny you asked that because Rick was here for spring break last week and he came over and we were sitting talking. And that's what he asked me. He said, hey, when you got fired at Clemson, he said, how did you feel? I mean, I said, lost. I felt absolutely lost. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know. And he goes, yeah, that's how I am right now. He said, I'm just kind of lost. And that's where you are. I mean, it's something that's all we know. We've played ball since we were third grade, and then we've played it through college, and then we coached. We got immediately right into coaching. So ball is all we know as far as an occupation. And then when all of a sudden it just ends, then you're worried about what the next step's going to be.
And it's that, I mean, when you work really, really hard every day, regardless of what profession or field, there's the fulfillment that comes when you succeed at whatever it is that you're working on that day. And so when it's over, I guess your situation is different because you're in retirement, but still there's still that mental, that push-pull, and that I'm going to grind for 15 hours, and then there's that whatever it is that says that mission was a success, whether it's a win or a recruit or whatever. How do you feel? Is that a question for you? Is how you feel, how you have filled that void, how you plan on doing? Like what have you been up to?
No, that's a huge question. Because all of a sudden, after 42 years of college football coaching, not talking about playing, but just coaching for 42 years. I mean, the competitive drive that you have to be in the game and to stay in it for that period of time doesn't just all of a sudden go away because you've decided not to coach anymore. So now, and that's the process really that I'm going through right now is every blade of grass in this yard will be manicured to a T. I'll pressure wash the driveway once a week. But, just for a sense of accomplishment, I mean, I'm going to have to, I play golf. Fortunately, I really enjoy playing golf. So that's something, and I enjoy the game of golf. I enjoy trying to get better at it. And so that will give me something to still compete at. But I got a feeling down the road here, whether it's going up the street and helping volunteering with a high school or Pee Wee League or something, I got a feeling that somewhere along the line I'm gonna have to get, I'll probably get back involved in some way. Not near to a point where a college job, because I don't want to do that. You get my age and you wonder, when you get 70, you wonder, how many years you got left. And, I look at it as it's time for me to enjoy some of them. So that's what I'm going to try to do.
I take it you're still in Murfreesboro?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And that's where you plan to stay?
Well, for now, I'm going to stay here for now. So, and just kind of see what happens. I enjoy Murfreesboro, to be honest. I mean, it's a good city. It's a good city to live in. We've got some good friends here for in a 10-year period of time. You make friends outside of coaching. And unfortunately, about everybody that was on our staff is gone, has gotten jobs and has moved on. So, but I enjoy living here. And for right now, we're going to stay here.
It's so fascinating thinking of some other cases that are in this sort of category. I think of Matt Luke, who after Georgia won it all in 21, he said, "You know what? I've got to spend time with my family, take a sabbatical." I don't even know if he called it a sabbatical. He walked away. But,
yes, he did.
But in hearing him reflect now that he's obviously at Clemson, at first it's like, you go into you're playing golf and you're walking into the gym and it's like, oh, here's, you're with all the I guess a lot of older people who are retired or whatever during the day.
A lot of guys like me.
Yeah, it's like a little weird, and but it's fun because you're with your family and all that. But ultimately, he said the most interesting thing I took from his perspective and recollections of why he got back in it, is he said it wasn't just he who felt that tug. It was his family. It was his kids. Who that's all they knew growing up, was being a part of the team, coming to practices and going to games, and just those rhythms of a football team, even as crazy as they are and as grinding as it is, it's almost like that's the DNA of a family. And so I thought that was just really interesting perspective from him as he explained why he got back in it.
That is interesting, but he's exactly right. I mean, it is when the hours the way they are, and you just look for any time, like Thursdays in our profession, you get through practice a little bit earlier on Thursday, and we don't stay and watch tape Thursday nights. You go home, and so that's a night like boy, I can remember Turner being all fired up because, hey, Dad, it's Thursday, and because we were always going to go eat or do something together on Thursday night. And it's just, you look for those little things. And then it is a big deal to be for your children and your family to go to games every week. And I can see where a family would have a hard time too. I mean, they would go into withdrawals, not having that, or here comes Saturday and we're not going to a game. So yeah, I can get that. He's a little different because he had younger kids.
Yeah.
His kids weren't grown and out of the house. So yeah, I could see that totally. But I'm glad he's back in it. He's one of the good guys, and I'm glad he's back in the game.
Another person I think of, another case is Jeff Scott, who I guess that really is a story of how much the coaching profession has changed in terms of compensation in the last 15 years. Yeah. And really, that story is told through him and his dad, Brad Scott, who during Brad's time as an assistant and even as a head coach, you weren't making enough money to even have a choice of, I think I'm going to retire or take a sabbatical at age 43 or whatever it is. Whereas Jeff, he just so happened to come along at a time where a position coach and a coordinator, instead of making $150 a year, is making over $1 million. And then he cashes in, but he takes that next step to the head coaching job, which is a familiar route for successful assistants. Well, it doesn't work out. Well, he had just gotten an extension the year before that assured that he could live pretty comfortably for a while without stepping back on a football field. So it's amazing just looking at the examples of a father and son in the industry, and just how much things have changed in the last 10 or 15 years as far as the compensation goes.
Well, no question. Financially, the game's changed in a lot of ways, but financially certainly is one of them. I think people are now getting compensated. I call it hazardous pay. Because now, we used to laugh and say two kind of coaches, those that's been fired and those that's going to be fired. Now it's even more true than ever. But way back in the day, you would get 5 or 6 years to build a team. And that's not the case anymore. So, but it certainly is a lot different financially now than it's ever been. And especially at that level, when you get up to the Power 5 level, the pay now. But I'm going to tell you this, they earn every penny of it. The way recruiting's changed, which I say with no rules, when they took all the rules out of recruiting, it's a different game now. You don't, used to, we'd have our camps and then we would have 3 or 4 weeks in the summer where we didn't do much of anything other than stop by and check on our guys and make sure their workouts were going good. And now it's pretty much 12 months out of the year.
So when I was interviewing Stockstill, I just have a surface level knowledge of Middle Tennessee and that level. I just don't follow them as closely. Mm-hmm. But when he got let go, it was a bit of a jolt because I asked myself, wait a minute. I think just last fall in 2022, I remember them going to Miami and taking the Hurricanes to the woodshed, among other results, having a really good season, and he's already fired? Like, what is as you look back, how do you make sense of it, of why?
Well, here, he kind of got caught up in a situation of it was a contract year.
Oh, okay.
And so, you get caught. We say timing is everything, but he was in a contract year, and so either they're going to up the ante or they're going to let him go. And I think it's a little bit different situation here. 18 years, as good a job as Rick did, and he did an unbelievable job. Well, that same year, we went to the Hawaii Bowl and beat San Diego State, which was a really good team in the Hawaii Bowl, and then get fired the next year. So, but after 18 years, I say, there's only one way to please everybody, to please all the alumni and all the fans, and that's to go undefeated and fire the head coach. And then you please everybody, because each year as a head coach, there's going to be a group of people now that don't like you as much, regardless of what you do. All right. So now you've been here 18 years. You've got a group that really, doesn't think you're the guy. We need a younger guy. We need this. We need that. And I think that's kind of the situation that came up here, and that's probably why they decided to make a change. But that's not unrelated. I mean, I can remember back to a year where I can't remember everybody, but I think Philip Fulmer got fired the year they had played in the championship game the year before, and he got fired the next year. I want to think it was the same way at Georgia Tech. There was 3 schools that they had played in the conference championship game the year before, and 3 coaches got fired. So, that's kind of been going on for a while.
That's a great point. Chan Gailey, I think you're referencing.
Chan Gailey was the other guy, and there was one more. There was 3 in a year, and I was like, "Holy smoke!" I said, "So we were laughing, saying the moral of the story is don't play in the conference championship game because you get fired the next year."
What you said it's a young man's game now. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I just think recruiting has changed so much. Where in my day coming up and basically, I loved recruiting, wanted to make a name as a recruiter, and worked for Coach Ford for 10 years, who I thought was a really, really good recruiter. He's great with, but it's changed now. It's not relationships. It was relationship driven. We could actually outwork people in those days. Like Coach Ford would go on Mondays, he'd go speak at a touchdown club somewhere, and wherever he was, he'd get schools from us, and he'd go visit 4 or 5 high schools. Well, no other head coach was doing that. So then, for all the head coaches that didn't want guys doing that, they make the rule where the head coach can't go out. Now, he can't go out but one time to see a kid. He can't go out in the spring at all. He can't, they started trying to make it where you couldn't outwork people. We would still try to outwork them on the phone. We'd outwork them on, writing letters. And so then they say, well, you can't just send postcards from anywhere. You can't go visit the Broncos and send postcards from Denver. And it was like, as it went, it was like they were trying to make rules where you couldn't outwork people. Now, everything is so social media driven, which really isn't the way that we guys my age, we didn't grow up in the social media age, but that's all it is now. It's all social media. It's not as much phone where, recruiting, we got to know the parents, whoever the guardian was or whoever the parents. Well, that's who we got to know because you didn't have cell phones. You called the house. Well, the kid was never there. So you ended up talking to the mother, the grandmother, the father, whoever. You ended up talking to them once or twice a week when you call. So you had great relationships with those people. And those days are kind of gone. And, I listened to Coach Saban talk about it, who I have great respect for. And, he told the story about, why he's in it. And it is still with our age, we want to help those kids. Man, we want to teach those kids, one, how to act on and off the field, but we want to teach them how to play football. And I can make you a better player and help you make more money when you get out of here because I'm going to make you a good football player as long as you do your part. Then Coach Saban, his quote was, now, they're like his wife said, now they're interested in, how much you're going to pay him. So that's kind of out of my league there. I'm too old. I'm not going to get into well, he's going to pay me this and he's going to pay, that's fine. I can help you I can help you on and off the field if that's not good enough for you and help you get your degree. Then maybe you ought to look elsewhere.
I sort of have a murky, rough idea of what Clemson's NIL sort of situation or routine or whatever looks like. I'm just curious at a lower level, what does it look like? How did y'all handle it at Middle Tennessee in terms of addressing it, of even applying it, and just what did it look like there? I assume a lot different than some of these major conferences.
Oh yeah, a lot different. We don't have that kind of money at the Group of 5 level. I think some are trying. I know my son coaches at Georgia Southern, and I think they raised $100,000, $150,000, something like that for their NIL, and which is nothing. The problems you run into, to me, at our level, is I'm not going to say the school, but I know they were having to try to keep their quarterback. And so they came up with $150,000 and kept their quarterback and a wide receiver and a defensive player. and that was their 150,000. Well, they didn't have a good year, and the locker room became really bad because 3 guys were getting money and the others weren't. One of them had gotten hurt, wasn't playing, and so at our level, you're obviously not going to have enough to pay everybody. So I think that can create a lot of animosity. It would with me in the locker room, if you're paying 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 guys. So at our level, you don't have the money to do that kind of thing. And there's nowhere to go raise it. I mean, shoot, we're trying to raise money to stay afloat.
Yeah, and at your level, and there have been plenty of examples of if you have a player who really takes a big jump and establishes himself as a high-level player, well, he gets poached by a
absolutely
major school.
Absolutely. I had a really good defensive line for the last 4 or 5 years. And so anyway, when it went down here, I met and talked with all my guys. Well, they didn't want to stay. They wanted to test the market and see if one of my defensive linemen goes to Miami. He gets $200,000. Another one goes to Vanderbilt and he gets $100,000. I got one that went to Michigan State. I'm not sure exactly what he got, and then I got another one that went to Memphis that got paid. So, I mean, had we been able to stay, I think we'd probably kept them, but that's what's going to happen. I mean, if you get a guy, that's like now. We had a kid when I was a head coach at Memphis, D'Angelo Williams, who was great football. Just got put in the College Football Hall of Fame. And we'd have never gotten him in this day and time. I'd have never been able to recruit him. That was a relationship thing with him, his mom, and we were able to beat Ole Miss and Tennessee and all of them to get him. But in today's game, in recruiting today, we'd have never gotten him at Memphis because we wouldn't have had the money to pay.
Yeah, and maybe carrying that to Clemson's, like if you. They're the past decade, I guess. I mean, you look at some of their generational players. If you were to list them, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Watson, Dexter Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence, a number of others, T. Higgins. I'm not saying all of them, none of them would have come to Clemson, but I would bet a good amount of money that several would not have in today's sort of framework. And then, I mean, that could cost you 2 national titles ultimately,
Absolutely. It's a different game. Now, am I right? I want to think I'd read where Clemson didn't get involved in the portal for a couple of years, and now they are.
They still haven't really. I mean, they have tried at a couple of positions the last 2 years, and they've just struck out on guys who went to, say, Michigan, Florida State, a couple of others. But I think you get back. That goes back to what is your philosophy on NIL? And Dabo's philosophy is we are for NIL. We don't want it to be the reason that a prospect, whether a portal prospect or a high school prospect, chooses Clemson, but we don't want it to be the reason they leave Clemson. So in essence, the translation is, hey, when you come, when you're trying to figure out whether to come here, we're going to be about, our commitment is going to be more about the more holistic parts of development and all that, cultural things. But if you come here and you establish yourself, and I think this aligns with Saban's beliefs, if you establish yourself and you're marketable and you have other people, nosing around, then we can talk giving you a better deal, if you prove it. And so I think I suspect that's why they've maybe not been as marketable in the portal with some of these limited instances, as maybe because those other schools might have committed to forking out more.
Agree 100%. I love the approach. I think that's how I would like for it to be. I'd love to see it be that way. And I wish they could put some rules in to slow this thing down. to where it wouldn't be a bidding war. I mean, use the NFL as an example and try to make it where they can't just get it like it is right now, totally out of control. And maybe someday we'll get to that. I don't know that we will, but right now it's totally out of control. I'd love to think you could still, and that's the Clemson way to me. It's always been a special place. It's my favorite place. I loved coaching there, loved being there, loved living there. I was there 9 years with Coach Ford, and then 5 more as a head coach. And it's a great, great place. And once you become a Clemson person or a Clemson guy, then it gets in you. I mean, it's that kind of place. The issue, I think, so that we've got ourselves into now is you're selling that kind of place. But then when somebody comes along with $1 million, that's kind of hard, at 18, 19, 20 years old. How do they turn down $1 million? And it's literally $1 million or more. It's crazy. It's just absolutely ludicrous right now.
Yeah, we're going to have. And I think most everybody realizes this now on all parts of the discussion, is there's going to have to be structure, because if you don't have structure and you have all this movement and everything's so fluid, when fans lose their ability to identify with continuity and personalities and names, not just on their teams, but of the opposing teams, then that's where you probably get closer to what college basketball is now during the regular season, where, like most people don't really care. It doesn't really have a whole lot of magnetism.
Yep.
I mean, you had the Alabama offensive lineman, Caden Proctor, transferred to Iowa after Saban left. And did you see they're going through spring practice at Iowa, and then he says, I think I'm going to go back to Alabama. That's crazy.
I did not see that.
Yeah, that happened.
So now he's decided he's going back.
It's like, it's ridiculous.
It's crazy. No, it's out of hand right now. The NCAA is losing their teeth totally. So that right now there's nothing to reel it back in, and it's going to take. Well, what I've said since I've been saying this since the 90s. That sooner or later that there's going to be 50 or 60 teams that are going to break off from the NCAA, and they're going to start their own, and they're not going to share any of the pie with anybody, because there's getting to be too much money in it, and so why would they want to share it? And we may be, that may be sooner than later that Big Ten and SEC are all of a sudden talking about that there may be a split. So, we'll see what happens. It's going to be really interesting, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years of college football.
Yeah, the velocity of this. I mean, we're accustomed over decades of we're accustomed to things moving pretty slowly, and then like every summer something big happens, or every other summer. Now I think we're talking 12 to 18 months. Honestly, I mean, stuff's moving very quickly, and I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the breakaway necessarily, as much as, okay, school A, you have a choice. Are you going to opt in or opt out to forking out $20 to $30 million a year to player salaries, employment, whatever you want to call it, revenue sharing? And oh, by the way, your revenue split that you get from this conference is going to hinge largely on your production and brand or lack thereof. So if you're, say, Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Indiana, I don't know that you necessarily get booted out, but you have an opportunity to opt in, and you choose, we can't play that game, or like Boston College or any other number of schools that do not have football in their DNA. I kind of think you're going to have some opt-outs. They're going to have to.
That can happen. I mean, I don't think there's any question that's when I say that they don't want to share all the pie.
Yeah.
People have said about Vanderbilt forever And I'm like, are you crazy? Vanderbilt's not going anywhere. Shoot, they're raking in. I forgot what the SEC paid this year. I think it was somewhere close to $80 million, I believe. But they're not going anywhere unless they're made to go somewhere. But I don't think there's any doubt that, but we're looking at the NFL.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at college football becoming. My fear is because I love the college game. I absolutely love it. I love the traditions of the college game. And I just hope we don't run the game in the direction that we're headed. We're in a bad place right now, I think. The game, fortunately, the game is better than it's ever been, in my opinion. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. The game is great right now. It's a great game. But we've got to reel it in and get some rules to it. And the NFL is probably going to be the way that it goes. An NFL team has to pay, they've got their salary structure, and that's kind of where we're headed. You're talking about a $30 million to opt in. That's probably where we're headed.
You said the game is better now than it's ever been. So I want you've been around a long time, of course. I want you to settle an age-old argument.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's take the 1982 Clemson team. That was your first year at Clemson, right?
Right.
They play against the 2018 Clemson national title team. I guess I could say the 81 Clemson national title team. You weren't there, but still.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I came in the spring. I'm familiar with that team.
What if they played a hypothetical thing that can never happen, but just to what you're talking about, which I'm with you, that the evolution of the game, I'm with you on that in that opinion. But what do you think would happen if those two teams played against each other?
Well, I'll say this now: the 81 team was loaded. You go back and look at the starting lineup on defense, and about every one of them were NFL guys. But still, I don't see the speed. I don't see the to play. The game's different now. The game's totally different now. The game's played different now, and I talk about this all the time. But we had to change our game. They're so big and they're so strong, and it's not in the line of scrimmage anymore. Where back in those days, it was a physical game in the line of scrimmage. People were coming off the ball flat back, and it was a tough game. Now it is not a tough physical game in the line of scrimmages because they stand up and they hold, because holding has become legal now. You can use your hands and you can hold, and they just stand up big. Now you can beat 350 pounds because all you're doing is standing up and holding, and backs are making cuts off of you. Now where the game has become physical is in the back end and out in the open field, because secondary players, linebackers are so much stronger, faster, physical, that we actually have had to change the game. I thought we had two choices. We could either make the field bigger because the collisions, too many people are getting hit and getting hurt, or then we got to change the rules. So they changed the rules. So now you can't hit face to face. You can't. We've actually changed the rules because guys have gotten so much bigger and so much stronger, and it's so violent in the open field that in those days, in the early '80s, and those days, you didn't run routes across the middle of the field. If you ran a route across the middle of the field, you knew you're going to catch it, you're going to get blown up, and that was and you taught that. So. It's changed. I didn't really answer your question. I would have to go with the game's different. I don't know that those teams in the 80s, because they weren't coached that way, could keep up in today's game. It was a running game. When I first got to Clemson, our wide receivers were in 3-point stances.
Yeah.
Literally, because we were running. We were an option team. So I don't, I just think the game is so much better now. I don't know that the players per se. I don't think they're as tough in the line of scrimmage. I always say this, but it's not a physical game up front anymore. Where it used to be a physical game inside. But I tell you what, now if they hadn't changed the rules, it would be brutal now. As big and strong as as safeties and not necessarily corners, but linebackers, safeties. It's just a more physical group because they're faster and they're stronger. You know, kids start lifting weights now at an earlier age. I mean, that's just where we got to. And my point is, again, that they had to change the rules for the game because the kids were you're getting hurt.
Yeah.
So they had to change the rules. Anyway, that's
the collisions were
answer that question. Yeah,
you're the collisions are taking place at different parts in open space now versus in a phone booth.
It's in the open field now. If you stand down on the sidelines, I mean, those collisions in the open field now are something. Because I mean, people are moving, people are flying, making contact. I mean, they're physical. These kids now are working out year round. I mean, it's 365. It's 24/7, 365 workout programs, and they're doing that in high school now. I hate it, boy. The thing I love to go recruit the guy that plays football, basketball, and baseball, and the reason is because he competes year round. But that's not where we've gone to. It's gotten so individualized that now kids are playing one sport. Okay, so I play football, and that's all I play. So I compete 10 to 15 times a year is all. Man, when we got through playing football, whenever we got beat in the playoffs on Friday, we were at basketball practice Saturday. Saturday morning, we'd be at basketball practice. And you competed. They don't do that now. You don't get in, but they're working out year round.
I would also think focusing on only one sport, my theory is it causes more injuries because when you're switching sport, when you're playing three sports, you're giving you specific muscle groups that are tied to one sport a break, and you shift to, you get what my drift. Do you agree with that theory?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. I'm all for playing all the sports. But I'm the guy that, everybody's into all the stretching and you got to do, they got to do all their routines, but yet there's guys sitting on the end of the basketball bench that don't go in the game till late. And then all of a sudden you call on them and they jump up and fly in the game and go play. They don't stretch and do all that. So I don't know. I don't know enough about all the muscle groups and all that kind of thing, but I like them to I like them to see them compete as much as they can.
Can you give us your mental picture of when you came to Clemson and like you said, in the spring of '82, you were at Appalachian State when they won the national title. What was your connection? Who brought you here? And just what were things like back then? Because Clemson winning a national title at that time was a kind of stop the presses stuff. People weren't, that was a kind of, I don't want to say little engine that could, but it kind of was. In some respects, viewed that way. So, what's your recollection of your transition then, and just what it felt like, what it looked like?
Les Herron was with us at Appalachian State, and he left and came to Clemson as linebacker coach, and so that was my connection. And then the next year, I came down and met with Coach Ford and talked to him, and then decided to leave and come down. But man, Clemson is a place that just grows on you. I mean, I wanted to be there because that's the level I wanted to coach at, and Coach Ford gave me the opportunity to prove myself, and then, like I said, I was there for 9 years with him, and Clemson became my school. Even though I had played at Tennessee and loved Tennessee, Coach Majors offered me a job. I think it was probably my 7th or 8th year at Clemson, and I turned it down, and he couldn't believe it. He was upset why I wouldn't come back to Tennessee. You're a Tennessee guy. You need to come back. I said, nah, I'm really happy here. I love it here. And Clemson had become, my school. And I think that's what it does. Clemson's just got a mystique. If you're a traditionalist like I am, I love tradition. I mean, there's what better place? I mean, from the Rock, from the Hill, from Death Valley, I mean, just there's tradition everywhere, and just a great place. I've always said when you talk about a big game, there's not a better place than Death Valley when you're talking about a big game. When you're talking about Georgia, or you're talking about South Carolina. There's not a better place. Florida State in our time in the 80s, it was Florida State. Georgia had become, I don't know, at that time, South Carolina was down, and Georgia had probably become a bigger rival than South Carolina at that time.
What was the best team y'all had in your mind? Which year, and what was the best team y'all faced during your time?
Oh, Lord. Well, I think probably the best teams were, when I was there, were probably those teams there at the end. We went 10-2, 10-2, 10-2, 87, 88, 89, and won the league 3 years in a row. That's the team that, you go back to losing to Florida State on the punt rooski, and then, I've never seen anything quite like that. Our kids were, for a year, they literally thought about that game for a whole year. And then when we went to Florida State that next year, I've never seen anything like it. They wouldn't talk the night before the game, and we went out on the field. They wouldn't say anything. They were just acting strange. And they had waited a year for that. And then I think we were up maybe 24-0 at the half. It was crazy, the intensity. And then at halftime, they're in the locker room screaming, "Don't let up, don't let up." I mean, they were that was a payback game. The best team, Florida State obviously had in my times at Clemson, Florida State had some great teams. Now in the 80s, Maryland had, when Bobby Ross was up at Maryland, and it would always come down. We always played them late, and it would always come down to us or them for the conference championship. Usually, it was whoever won that game won the league. But then when I came back as a head coach, there's no question Florida State. I mean, they were absolutely loaded at that time, and that was kind of my chore when I came back. I was got to help put this family back together and get everybody on the same page because it kind of got splintered. And then you need to beat Florida State. We got close there, and then I made the mistake of punting the ball to Peter Warwick, and we didn't get it done. But that's kind of, I'd say Florida State in those days. I mean, they had NFL players everywhere.
Upstate foodies, want to take a moment to talk to you about our favorite taco spot, Willie Taco. 5 locations across the upstate. This award-winning team has been serving up fresh taco fusion for a solid decade now. The chefs at Willie Taco utilize the freshest, most creative, and sometimes unexpected ingredients in their kitchens. Come see why Southern Living, Garden and Gun, and Food and Wine Magazine are raving about Willie Taco and their signature offerings, such as their Southern Tide, Crispy Avocado, Nashville Hot Chicken Tacos, literally flavors you will not find anywhere else, folks. And don't forget about the cocktails. Super fresh margaritas, ice cold cerveza, and over 80 tequilas served up daily from behind the bar. So don't wait, folks. Your Willie Taco Familia is ready to serve you up their twist on funky, fresh fusion. It's the Willie way. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archenhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced, professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Want to share a quick word about Founders Federal Credit Union? If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Its office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. Did you feel, can you take me back to 89 was there anything that gave you a feeling that the end could be coming with Danny? Like, because he was bickering with the board of trustees and campaigning for the athletic dorm, and Clemson wanted to get away. Well, the NCAA was getting away from that, first of all, but Clemson wanted to get back to they wanted to get back to a better image, I guess, and doing things, so they were putting their support behind what became Vickery Hall. Do you remember what it was like in the run up to that, and just what it felt like, and whether
we as assistant coaches, or I guess I can just speak for myself, but I had no feeling until really probably, I don't know, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks before it happened. But believe it or not, Tennessee had offered me a job again. At that point in time, I'd talked to Coach Majors out at the convention in San Francisco. And I came back and told Coach Ford, because I didn't want him to think that I was out trying to get another job. And I said, Coach, just so you know, I visited with Coach Majors at the convention. He talked about that he thought he was going to have a defense coordinator opening, and that he would love for me to come back over there. And I said, nothing was offered to me, and nothing happened. And he said, well, don't tell him no, just wait. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that, I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see what happens. And I'm like, huh?
Wow.
What, and I didn't ask him what was going on or anything, but so that was the first time that I knew something, because Coach Ford would have never told me not to. And then when it came down, it was just like shock. I tell people now, we won 30 games in our last 3 years and got fired. We went 10-2, 10-2, 10-2 and got fired. And people are like, huh? And but different circumstances. So, but yeah, it was a shock. Is what it was. I mean, we had it going too. I mean, we had it going really good from a recruiting standpoint, from a player standpoint. I mean, it was going really good, and then got broken up.
Yeah, I'll never forget watching that West Virginia Gator Bowl, and the announcers toward the end of that game are like, "This looks like the national championship favorite for 1990." Like, it was just young guys all over the place.
Yeah, that was a beatdown. I mean, they had Major Harris at quarterback, and I mean, Levon Kirkland, John Johnson, all those guys. I mean, he didn't want any more. He took himself out of the game. Chester McLaughlin. So, I mean, yeah, we had it going really, really good. And I think, let's see, we probably beat Oklahoma, Penn State,
yep,
West Virginia in those bowl games, Stanford. Had it rolling, but I'm glad to see they got it back going.
Chris Ard, my boss, the publisher at TigerIllustrated.com, you might not remember this, but in 2011, he came and interviewed you. I guess you were at UAB, sat down with you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
I do remember.
Lengthy interview with you and all the other living former coaches. And something, as I was reading that back earlier today, one thing that stood out to me was after Ford got let go, Ken Hatfield had been hired. You were out at Ford's farm talking to him maybe about the Tennessee job you were about to take. Well, here comes Ken Hatfield rolling up to talk to Danny, I guess, just to pick his brain. That's quite an image. Can you maybe shed some light on that meeting?
Yeah, I was just out at Coach Ford's visiting with him, and Coach Hatfield came out. I think Coach Hatfield came out to talk to the coach about some of the coaches. He was thinking about keeping a couple of Coach Ford's staff, and so he came out to talk to Coach about that. And he did. I know he kept Les. He kept Les. I can't remember. And he kept Stock. He kept Rick Stockstill and Les, and that may be it. But anyway, I think that's what that was about, was to come talk to him about that.
Tommy, Clemson in present day is fully aligned in its chain of command, from the coach to the AD to the president to the board of trustees. Obviously, Dabo is reason number one why they have been able to get to the level they've gotten, but it would not have been possible had the administrative alignment been out of whack, because that's how you don't get facilities built. That's how you have grudges and different agendas and such. You were around at a time in the 90s when Clemson was still trying to figure itself out, figure out what it wanted to be. I mean, that was like a formative time, and it was not a fun time because it seemed like it couldn't figure itself out. Can you maybe, a lot of that, I guess, related to the direct effect on you was probably facilities because they languished to the point where I believe that when Tommy Bowden got the job and called you, I think the first thing you said was stay on them about facilities because the facilities are not good. Can you maybe just shed some light on that time period as Clemson is transitioning between being very prominent on the football field but having some baggage to then trying to get it back, but get it back without the baggage, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think Clemson knew what they wanted to be, but at that time, I don't think they were willing to make the commitment to be what they wanted to be, or didn't realize until North Carolina, built with Brown was up at North Carolina at that time, and boy, they made the commitment and they built a facility in their end zone. I don't know if you remember, but boy, they built a Taj Mahal in the end zone, and with academics, cafeteria, weight room, locker room. I mean, just state of the art, ahead of everybody, way ahead of everybody. And that was kind of the time. The 90s was kind of the time when it became a little bit of, you got to keep up with the Jones because that's what these kids are looking for. And at the time, my sell was, look, we don't have the big city and we don't have the bright lights, and we don't, when we were recruiting, we bring a kid in from Miami, we got to have something to show him. Now in these days, it's hard to sell that, hey, we've been a winning program. You got to have the facilities they want to see, especially I love being in Clemson. I love living in Clemson. But a kid from Atlanta or Miami, when they come in, they don't like that small town. They don't like 5 red lights. They want to see something going on. So I thought facilities is what could have really helped make Clemson better at that time. We didn't go in that direction. And I guess you can see now where it did go once the facilities were done. Because, all of a sudden, when Clemson built theirs now on top of having all the traditions and everything, now you got, at the time when they built it, they had the top in the country probably, and still one of the best in the country. And you can see what it's done for them. Now it's put them on a national stage. You don't just all of a sudden get really good. And kids don't just all of a sudden decide, the top players decide we're going to start coming. You got to show them something. I mean, you don't get something for nothing in our game, or in any game for that matter.
And it's almost like maybe at that time for Clemson's administration, which is still sort of grappling with its identity and how serious it wants to be about football, going all in on facilities means, we're going back to that way of an imbalance of priorities between athletics and academics. So they're kind of skittish on that front, to say nothing of the fundraising that's needed to really go all in on facilities.
Well, I mean, now you're going back to there was somewhat of a struggle with, we want to win all our games. And, but do we really is that what we really want to be? I mean, do we want to be known as a football school? Or do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there had been the power struggle that came, and then Coach Ford got fired. Okay. And so now how much do we really want it to go back? No, we don't want it to go back to that. We don't want, and I think I think you make a very valid point, that there was a struggle at that time. We literally, academically at that time, and see, that's the thing I've always said is Clemson's a great school academically. Nobody at that time realized how good a school it was academically. It was kind of a hidden point, but we struggled with admissions at that time of kids that could qualify NCAA wise, and we weren't letting them in. To which I'm like, hey, we're not playing on a level field here now. If South Carolina can get a kid in, then we ought to be able to get him in if he's NCAA. But anyway, you see what I'm saying. There was a struggle there, a little bit of identity of what we really are. I think we knew what we wanted to be, but there wasn't quite the commitment there from the top down. You're saying now from the top down, and boy, that tells me that's how Clemson's gotten to where they are now. They got a heck of a coach and staff and all that, but it has to come from the top down, from the president to the AD, or from the board of trustees, really, to the president, to the AD, to the football coach down.
Doing something in that west end zone. Actually, I think the idea started with you.
That's what I wanted. I at that time I thought, we can do without some of these bleachers, and I wanted to build a facility. What I wanted to do was build a facility there and house, put our football players. They would be, when they came to practice, that's where we would be, from weight room, everything there in that end zone. And then take the parking lot where the RVs, I don't know if they still park there, but at that time, you know what I'm talking about right there.
Jervy
outside
Meadows.
Of it, where all the RVs parked right there. I wanted to make that the practice fields. So then, you just went from the end zone, walk right outside, and you're walking right into the practice, and then put all the RVs over on where the old practice fields were, to which I guess the practice fields are still there. I hadn't been back in a while, but so anyway,
yeah.
but got it done. And I did tell Tommy, when Tommy called me and wanted to go to lunch, we went to lunch, and I said, man, just stay on him. I said, dude, you got to you're at a disadvantage right now recruiting. We're still living in the era where we think the kids are just going to come here because it's Clemson, and kids are changing, and they're not just coming, but they want to see the commitment. And, I think he did. I don't know if he did or not. It didn't get done until after him, I think.
I have a story. I think you're gonna get a kick out of. Last fall, I was interviewing Ellis Johnson about that era and about the facilities, evolution at Clemson. He says, hell, there was one year where it was bad weather, and the Jervy gym was just way too small for us to do anything. So we went out to this livestock arena. I guess Pendleton, the livestock arena out there, and it didn't last long. We were only out there for about a half hour because it was just dirt. And I said, Ellis, I've been around here a long time, and I've heard a lot of stories. I'm surprised I never heard about that. And he says, yeah, we kept it a secret because we didn't want it to get out and hurt our recruiting.
That's exactly right. Now, here's what happened, and they still get on me about this, but we started practice, August practice started, and we got rain for about, I think it was 3 or 4 days, the first 3 or 4 days of practice, that we couldn't get anything done. And, Jervy Gym, we couldn't get anything done in Jervy Gym. And so when I called out that, man, they rolled that thing and tried to get it as hard as they could. And I said, guys, we're going out here. I don't care. We're practicing. We're practicing today, whatever we have to do. And of course, the doctors were like, are you kidding me that we can't go out here? These livestock's been all over this thing. And I said, I don't care. We're going and we're practicing. And, kind of got our players all fired up. I said, man, we're going to practice. I don't care. This rain's not going to get us. We got out there, and I guess about 30 minutes in, I'm like, what are we doing here? so I said, hey, that's it. I blew my whistle. I said, that's it. Get on the buses. We're out of here. And so we got out, but we're just trying to get something done.
So when you were let go, you were trying to get out, and then you did, but then you realized, was it your son had another year of another year of school?
He
or
was,
something?
He had another year of elementary school. Yeah.
And so you ended up.
I was going to move. I was going to go to Gainesville for a year. I was going to sit out. I had turned down some jobs, and because I was just a mess. I mean, you got to realize now, Clemson was my place.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
And now I get this opportunity, and then in our fifth year, we have a bad year. Where we had done okay, trying to rebuild the thing and get it back. Our issue before had been we didn't win our bowl games. We had we have a really good year in the second year and getting the Gator Bowl, and then the worst game while I was there was the Syracuse game in the Gator Bowl, and that was my fault. I took them down way too early, and they were wore out and really didn't want to be there when the game finally got there. So that was on me. And then we had lost Auburn, lost LSU, and lost to Auburn in the Peach Bowl in close games that could have won, that could have made a difference. And then in my fifth year, we have a bad year. And I understood it. I mean, it's that kind of place. And again, that was a contract year too. That you can't have that kind of year there. So that's kind of the way it went down. What I said at the end of it, and boy, I look back, and that's why the Memphis thing was so important to me. Is I felt like I had gotten some things done there at Clemson, rebuilding it. People that know Clemson realize what had happened with Coach Ford, and then when Coach Hatfield came. And it wasn't Coach Hatfield. It wouldn't have mattered who came to Clemson at that time. They didn't want him. They wanted Coach Ford there. And it just happened to be Ken Hatfield. But it was splintered so bad that when the Clemson people were sour towards Clemson because of Coach Hatfield. And like I said, it's not just him, because Coach Ford wasn't there. And so then, and that affects recruiting. I mean, when your base isn't all together, like you just said about so we went to work and tried to put that back together. I think we did. I think we got the Clemson family to say, I think we got it back together and got everybody pulling in the same direction. And then, like I said, then in the fifth year, we had a bad year and we didn't get it done. Memphis was really important to me because that was a way for me to go make up for that. When I got the Clemson job, I had been 1 year as a head coach. God, I wished when I thought I became a good head coach was 3 or 4 years into the Memphis thing, and I understood my role in how to make teams better. That you got to go get a quarterback. You're not going to win with just defense. You got to have a quarterback with it. A lot of things. But hindsight's 20/20. But I wouldn't take anything for the time that I spent there. I mean, I'm a Clemson guy still. I pull for Clemson, and I'm going to come back there someday. It's been 25 years now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back to a game there someday.
Can I ask you to confirm a story for me? It's actually kind of
sure.
We can laugh about it now.
Sure.
The story goes, and I wasn't around, but I've heard that when it's announced that the South Carolina game is going to be your last game, and I guess it was after a practice during the week, and Reggie Herring is really angry at the media. And walks by and says, "It's y'all's fault," screaming at the media guys. And he took his, supposedly, again, I'm asking for confirmation. You might not know this, but it's an hilarious story, even whether it's true or not. But he took his practice gear. He had it balled up or maybe a bag of his practice gear, or balled up in his arms or whatever, and a shovel. And he took it out toward the practice field and dug a hole and buried it, I guess as a show of protest or whatever. Well, then he gets retained, and then he has to go back and dig it back up and put it back on. Is that just has that been embellished, or does that sound like something Reggie did or would do?
Well, it's been changed a little bit. No, you kind of got to know Reggie. You know, Reggie's Reggie just retired too from the Broncos. Reggie ended up in the NFL for 15, 20 years. Great football coach, great guy. But Reggie's a highly emotional guy. That's what makes him a hell of a coach. And he was very emotional, but he didn't bury his clothes. He burned them. We had after the South Carolina game, we stayed out on the practice fields for a long time, had a fire going, and Reggie burned his clothes. So no, he did not go get them back. They were gone. And then you're right. And then he gets retained.
Okay, I have to hear more about this gathering late the night, and I'm guessing early wee hours of the morning. A fire at the practice fields among the coaching staff. I assume some bourbon and beers involved. I want to hear more about this because I never heard about that.
No, that was just that was like the last dance. You know, that was our last game, and we just kind of sat out on those. It was a night game. We came back over there and we did stay. We probably stayed till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, just soaking it in. You know, I think we all were didn't want it to be over, and that was just our way to kind of enjoy it. So we stayed out on those practice fields, had us a fire going, and kind of enjoyed the last dance.
And he threw his gear into the fire.
Yeah.
Where did you and Tommy Bowden eat lunch that day?
I can't think of the name of it. Right there on the main street. It was one of the nice restaurants right there. At that time, there wasn't many. Mm-hmm. I can't. 2 names. I can't think of it right now.
Calhoun Corners, maybe.
No, but it's the other one.
Pixies and Bills.
Pixie and Bills. Yeah, same guy owns both. George. But yeah, Pixie and Bills. We one of those back rooms there, Pixie and Bills.
What was it like spending that year here when you were obviously you're a mess, as you said?
I was very selfish to start with. I was going to leave town. I was going back home. I was going to go to Gainesville, Georgia, and stay that year because I knew I wanted to sit out. I knew I just wasn't ready. David Cutcliffe had called, and he was at Ole Miss at the time about being the D coordinator. And I said, David, I can't do it. I'm a wreck right now. I said, I'm mad at the world, and you don't need me. And right now, I said, you need to hire somebody else. And so I was going to go to Gainesville. And then it finally dawned on me, how selfish can you be? I mean, I'm going to get back in it. So you're going to move your child out of school into a school in Gainesville, then you're going to move him somewhere else when you take another job next year. So I just told myself, you need to suck it up and stay there in town. And so I did. And he finished elementary school there and then went to Memphis the next year. And it's funny. I can tell you a funny story of Coach Bowden called me, I guess, a year after he had gotten fired, and we were talking, and he said, "Wow, man," he said, "I can't believe that you stayed in Clemson for the whole year after." And he said, "I never thought about it." He said, "Or I'd have probably watched some of the things I said." And I said, "No, I realized, Tommy, I'm a grown man, and I realized that you got to say things because you got to start selling your program." So I didn't let those kind of things bother me. And he goes, "Well, man, I'm having to listen to Dabo talking about all the things." And I said, he goes, "How did you have?" And I said, "Well, you can't he's got to sell his program. That's just the evolution of it. I mean, when the new guy comes in, he's got to start selling his stuff. It's nothing personal against you, but he's got to sell his." And he goes, "Yeah, it's just hard." I said, "Oh, I didn't say it was easy." but you just got to realize that's the nature of our game.
That is, wow, what a cool. That's great. What a great recollection. I'd never really thought about that, but it is true. Like, the first year coach has to sell his program, and you have to sell a difference from the previous coach who's probably been fired.
Absolutely. And you know, it's going to be hard. I mean, I've always said, who you follow as a head, you want to start out and be a great head coach to start with. Well, then you get one of those jobs where somebody got a better job because they won a lot of games. When you get a job where the guy got fired because he didn't win enough games or something was wrong, then it's not going to be a great football team when you get there. Let's take like a Butch Jones. Okay, Butch followed the guy at LSU at Western Michigan, which it was a good job because he got the Cincinnati job. Then he followed at Cincinnati. And if all of a sudden you're following a guy that's winning where he goes, then the program is in good shape when you get there. So you just carry it on. But if the guy got fired before you, then, there's changes you need to make. So that's just kind of the nature of it.
Tommy, is there anything that I've missed or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I've enjoyed talking to you. No, bringing back some good memories. I want to get back over there at some point in time to some of their reunions to see some of the former players. That's what's made. But I'm really proud for Clemson right now. And you said something that that hit me. Man, they've got it going right now with the board and the president and the AD and everybody on the same page. Everybody trying to get to the same place. And man, that makes me feel good. I mean, I'm glad for Clemson that they've got that now and that they're going in the same direction. And, I got a real good friend, Nick Eason, that came back over there. We recruited Nick out of high school and signed him right before we got fired the next year. And, I know how much he tells me how good things are right now and how good a place it is now. And I'm glad for them. I'm really proud for them that they got it going the right direction.
Yeah, the last 25 years are a really amazing story. Almost like you could make a movie out of it. Just all the twists and turns and all the things that had to come together for them to get to where they are.
No question. No, it hadn't been easy. I don't think there's any question. And there's been struggles, but good's going to win in the end. And like I said, I'm really glad they did. Dabo's a good guy and done a good job. And Woody McCorby's keeping him right down the straight road.
Indeed. Well, Tommy, I'll let you get back to focusing on that,
okay.
The manicure and that lawn and your golf game. and when you do get back, I'd love to visit with you, maybe take you to lunch and catch up in person.
Sounds good to me. I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you having me on your show.
I say this a lot. Hey, that was one of my favorite interviews. I say that after a lot of interviews. That definitely was, I think that'll go down as one of my favorites for sure. So many cool layers of Tommy West insights and recollections and images. I think he had a lot of fun unearthing a lot of that too. Thanks so much to the support of our sponsors for continuing to help make this happen. And of course, thanks to every one of you for continuing to hit that play button. Greatly appreciated. Cheers.